Hello students, now we are going to see commerce. So unit 3, service business. Under this the topic name is warehousing. Here so many subtopics are given. The first one is meaning of warehouse and warehousing, differences between warehouse and warehousing, types of warehouses, functions of warehouses, advantages and drawbacks of warehousing, warehousing documents, and the last topic is warehousing in India. Now we can see the meaning of warehouse and warehousing. Under this, we can see the introduction. The term ware means products or goods. Warehousing generally means storage place or godowns which is located near a factory to keep the raw materials and finished products. Storage is only a holding place of goods, whereas a warehouse is located near the market to perform the other marketing functions such as grading, standardization, blending, mining, packing, etc. So the development of science and technology has improved the ways and means of storage, and it also removes the hindrance of time. So this is the introduction for warehousing. Next we can see the meaning of warehouse. It means it is a place where goods are stored for future use and act as distribution centers. Warehouses are designed depending upon the nature of the products to be stored. For example, to keep perishable items like fruits and vegetables, cold storages are required. Certain pharmaceutical products are to be kept under suitable temperature. Liquids like petrol, oil, molasses needs tanks, while grains like barley, pulses, etc. need ventilated halls. So this is the meaning for warehouse. So now we can see the definition of warehouse. According to J. Stephenson, a warehouse is an establishment for the storage or accumulation of goods. So this is the definition of warehouse. Now we can see the meaning of warehousing. It is an arrangement by which goods are stored when they are not needed immediately and are kept in such a manner so as to protect from damage or deterioration. A warehouse is a commercial building for storage of goods. Stored goods can include any raw materials, packing materials, spare parts, component and finished goods associated with agricultural, manufacturing and production. So this is the meaning for warehousing. The next is difference between warehouse and warehousing. Warehouse is a place where goods are stored for future use, whereas warehousing is an arrangement of goods. Warehouse is to hold goods for storing purpose only. Warehousing object is to preserve and protect the goods from deterioration in quality and quantity. So this is the differences between warehouse and warehousing. Now we can see the need for warehousing. Under this, the first one is mass production. Production is based on the anticipated demand for goods. Mass production of goods takes place by establishing big factories and modern production. The market for such goods is spread all over the country. Therefore, warehouses are to be built at different places to store these products and to provide a prompt supplies when demanded. The second point is nature of commodities. Some goods are perishable in nature and therefore it should be consumed in time to avoid deterioration. Storing them in cold storages can extend the life of the goods. And the third one is seasonal production but regular consumption. That means the farm products such as wheat, sugar, pulses, etc. are produced only in seasons, but the consumption of these products are evenly spread throughout the year. If proper storage facilities are not provided, the quality of these goods deteriorates and may become not usable. So this is the meaning for seasonal production but regular consumption. The fourth one is regular production but seasonal consumption. That means certain goods are produced regularly throughout the year, but they are demanded in seasons only. For example, raincoats, blankets, umbrella, etc. require storage for the whole year. They can be released in large quantities to meet the heavy demand in rainy and winter season. And the last one is proximity to production centers. So here the productions of goods at specific centers need to be supplied in time and without interruption to consumers throughout the country. For this purpose, goods are regularly fed to the warehouses situated at different market areas. So these are the needs for warehousing. Now we can see the types of warehouses. Under this, the warehouses can be classified into different types. The first one is private warehouses, public warehouses, government warehouses, cooperative warehouses, bonded warehouses, distribution center warehouses, then cold storage, export and import, then climate control, field warehouses, agricultural warehouses. Let us see private warehouses. Private warehouses are built and owned by private business enterprises in order to store the products produced by them. They are exclusively for their use and are not meant for other manufacturing or business units. So this is called to be as a private warehouse. The next one is government warehouses. It is owned, managed and controlled by the central or state governments or public corporations or local authorities. For example, Central Warehousing Corporation of India, State Warehousing Corporation and Food Corporation of India. If customers cannot pay rent within specified time, authority can recover rent disposing of goods. So this is government warehouses. The third one is public warehouse. It is open for public at large. Most of the business organizations, especially small and medium scale units, cannot afford to have their own warehouses. They may be owned by an individual or some agency. These warehouses operate as per the rules and regulations which is formed by the government. The next one is cooperative warehouses. And this cooperative warehouses is owned and managed, controlled by the cooperative societies. And the facilities at most economic rate to members. So it is located in Punjab, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Andhra. So these are all about the cooperative warehouses. And the next one is bonded warehouses. So it is licensed to accept imported goods for storage before payment of custom duty. And the imported merchandise is stored and released only after payment of appropriate taxes. Cigarettes, liquor, other products are also stored. And it is owned and operated by the Port Trust. It acts in two capacities, was landlord and bailey of goods. As landlord provides storage facilities on rent, as bailey of goods takes reasonable care to handle and store goods as it has lien on goods under care for charges of its services. And also the owner can sell goods wholly or in part by endorsing a warrant. And also it facilitates inter-import trade. That is, importer need not pay the import duty. So this is called bonded warehouse. The next one is institutional warehouse. Under this, different institutions and bodies have their own warehouses on account of the nature of their operations. For example, bank, railways, etc. have their own warehouses for conducting their activities. Various transport agencies also maintain warehouses for storing the goods which are to be dispatched and received. And the last one is distribution center warehouses. Under this, it is designed to move goods, large and highly automated, and it receives goods from various plants and suppliers. It takes orders, fill them efficiently, deliver to customers quickly. Located near the market, owned or leased by the manufacturers, and also it access to transport networks. The next one is general warehouse. Under this, they are ordinary warehouses which are useful for storing most of the dry food grains, fertilizers, etc. Protective measures against rat, insects, etc. are undertaken by them. The second one is special commodity warehouse. These warehouses are specially constructed for storing specific type of commodities like tobacco, cotton, wool, etc. These warehouses reduce loss of quality and quantity to a great extent. Storage of petrol and oil requires special type of vertical cylindrical storage tanks. So this is called special commodity warehouse. The next is cold storage. So it preserves perishability of goods against payments of a storage charge. Temperature variation is controlled to degree necessary for certain sensitive items. This is called cold storage warehouse. And the next one is climate controlled warehouses. The controlled climate environment can reduce the rate of metabolism in fruits and vegetables. Humidity controlled environments for delicate products such as flowers in dirt-free facilities in these warehouses. The next one is automated warehouses. Automated facilities which can handle several hundreds of kilograms of product at a time. Inside the warehouse, premises physical distribution activities are carried out by moving product filled pallets, that is platforms that hold large amounts of product. And it requires huge investment, latest technology and large turnover of goods. The next is functions of warehouse. Under this, the first point is storage. So this is the basic function of warehousing. Surplus commodities which are not needed immediately can be stored in warehouses. They can be supplied as and when needed by the customers. And the second function is price stabilization. That means warehouses plays an important role in the process of price stabilization. It is achieved by the creation of time utility by warehousing. Fall in the prices of goods when their supply is in abundance and rise in their prices during the slack season are avoided. Next is equalization of demand and supply. Warehousing equalizes the demand and supply of goods by storing these goods when they are not demanded and releasing them when there is a demand. Thus, the consumers get the commodities regularly even during the off-season periods. And the fourth point is business finance. Based on the goods deposited in a warehouse, the depositor can get finance from banks and other financial institutions by showing the receipt which is issued by the warehouse keeper. The next is risk bearing. When the goods are stored in warehouses, they are exposed to many risks in the form of theft, deterioration, exploration, fire, etc. Warehouses are constructed in such a way as to minimize these risks. Contract of bailment operates when the goods are stored in the warehouses. Next is preparation of sale. That means modern warehouses undertake the functions of sorting, packing and labeling for the purpose of making the goods suitable for marketing. Hence, warehousing is needed for making the goods suitable for sale. And the seventh point is widening the marketing area. That means a manufacturer can sell the goods to different marketing areas by establishing branch warehouses or taking the service of rental warehouses at the required places. Thus, warehousing widens the market for the goods. And the last one is value-added services. That means warehouses also provide certain value-added services such as transit mixing, grading, packaging and labeling. Sometimes goods are repacked and labeled again at the time of inspection by prospective buyers. Thus, these are all about the functions of warehouses. Now we are going to see the advantages of warehousing. Under this, the first point is it safeguards the stock of the merchants who do not have a storing place. And the second benefit is warehouses reduce distribution cost of the traders by storing the goods in bulk and allow the trader to take the goods in small lots to his shop. And also it helps in selection of channel of distribution. The producer will prefer whether to appoint a wholesaler or retailer. And also it assists in maintaining the continuous sales and avoids the possibilities of out of stock position. And the last benefit is it creates an employment opportunities for both skilled and unskilled workers to improve their standard of living. So these are all about the advantages of warehousing. The next one is drawbacks of warehousing. Under this, the first drawback is there are no adequate transport facilities between the place of production and warehouses. And the second drawback is lack of sufficient storage facilities for different commodities such as perishable and non-perishable commodities. And the third one is complicated formalities are to be fulfilled at the warehouses. The illiterate and innocent farmers are not able to cope up with these procedures. And the fourth drawback is complicated process of barcode technology can reduce the storing of goods by some producers. And the last drawback is unavoidable delay for obtaining the financial assistance may cause loss to the owner of goods. Thus, these are all about the drawbacks of warehousing. The next one is warehousing document. Under this, the first one is warehouse warrant. A warehouse warrant is a document that provides proof of ownership of commodities that are stored in a warehouse, and also it is issued for public or bonded. It is a document which certifies that the specified goods have been deposited in the warehouse for safekeeping. So this is called to be as a warehouse warrant. And the second one is warehouse receipt. That means this is a receipt of acknowledgement of the goods kept in the warehouse by the warehouse keeper. And the third one is delivery order. That means it is the order which is issued by the owner of the goods to deliver the specified goods to the person named in the order. And the next one is doc receipt. Doc receipt is an acknowledgement of receipt of the goods which is issued by doc authorities to the owner of the goods. It is not a document of title to goods. Therefore, the right of taking delivery of goods cannot be transferred. And the last one is doc warrant. A doc warrant is an instrument which is issued by a warehouse keeper, and it is licensed by the state to traders who deposit goods with them. A doc warrant certifies that the holder is entitled to goods imported and warehoused in the docks. It transfers the absolute right to the goods described in it. So these are all about the warehousing documents. Next is differences between warehouse warrant and warehouse receipt. Under this warehouse warrant, it is a document of title of goods. But in warehouse receipt, it is not a document of title of goods. Under warehouse warrant, it is not only an acknowledgement for the receipt of goods, but also gives an authority to get delivery of goods by the owner or by third party. But in warehouse receipt, it is only an acknowledgement for the receipt of goods. And the third point is, it can be negotiated or transferred to others. But in warehouse receipt, it cannot be transferred to others. In warehouse warrant, it can be given as a collateral security for getting a financial assistance. But in warehouse receipt, it cannot be given as a collateral security. Under this warehouse warrant, delivery of goods effected by surrendering this warrant with endorsement. But in warehouse receipt, delivery is effected by surrendering this receipt with letter from depositor. So these are the differences between the warehouse warrant and the warehouse receipt. And the next topic is warehousing in India. You all know that India is an agrarian country, but the importance of warehousing was not felt till 1950. Agriculture contributes 16% of the overall GDP and accounts for employment of approximately 52% of the Indian population. It is estimated that more than 40% of our agricultural productions wasted because of poor storage facilities. On the recommendations of the All India Rural Credit Survey Committee, the Agricultural Produce Corporation Act enacted in 1956, which is authorized by the government to set up a National Cooperative Development and Warehousing Board to develop agricultural cooperatives and warehousing. Under this, main warehousing agencies in public sectors are given. The first one is Food Corporation of India. Under this, it provides a storage facilities for food grains. Food Corporation of India also hires a storage capacity from other sources such as Central Warehousing Corporation, State Warehousing Corporation and private parties. The available storage capacity of Food Corporation of India is 74.6 million tons. And also the objectives of food policies have given. The first one is the distribution of food grains throughout the country for public distribution system. And the second point is effective price support operations for safeguarding the interest of farmers. And the third objective is it should maintain a satisfactory level of operational and buffer stocks of food grains to ensure the national food security. The next is Central Warehousing Corporation. It was established in 1957. The available storage capacity of Central Warehousing Corporation is 11.17 million tons and with the operation through 464 warehousing centers across the country. Under this, the functions of Central Warehousing Corporations have given. The first function is, it is to provide agency services for scientific storage of agricultural produce, seeds, menus, fertilizers, agricultural implements and other notified commodities. And the second point is, it is to issue a negotiable warehouse receipt for procuring a credit to the owners of goods. And also it is to preserve the produce deposited with care and to protect against insects and various pests and deterioration due to moisture and dampness. And the fourth point is, it is to act as an agent of the government for the purchase and sale, storage and distribution of specified commodities and transport to and from warehouse. And the last point is, it is to reduce the cost of storage and facilitate the marketing of produce through proper grading. So these are all about the Central Warehousing Corporation. The next one is State Warehousing Corporation. Under this, every state government is given power to establish its own warehousing corporation after getting approval from the CWC, that is Central Warehousing Corporation. 50% of the capital is contributed by the CWC and the balance 50% is contributed by the state government. And the last one is Tamil Nadu Warehousing Corporation. It was established in 1959. The available storage capacity of TNWC is 6.83 lakh MT with 7 regional offices and 256 godowns across the state. And also, it is one of the biggest public warehouses operating in the state, offering logistic services to a diverse group of clients. Thus, these are all about the warehousing agencies in public sector. The next is Unit 3, Service Business. So, here the lesson name is Transportation. Under this transportation, so many subtopics are given. First one is the meaning and definition of transport, types of transport, recent trends in transportation, documents used in transportation, and the last topic is common carrier. So now we can see the introduction of transport. Here the transport service facilitates the smooth carriage of goods from the place of producer to the place of consumer. Transport also facilitates traveling of people from one place to another place. The different types of transports are given below. Under this, the first one is surface and the second one is water and the third one is air. Thus it is classified into 3. So now we can see the meaning of transport. So here the transport refers to the activity that facilitates physical movement of goods as well as individuals from one place to another. In business, it supports trade and industry in carrying raw materials to the place of production and distributing finished products for the consumption. So this is the meaning for transport. Next, we can see the definition of transport. Here, definition of transport is given by K.K. Saxena. He has told that the transport system acts with reference to the area it serves in the same way as a candle does in a dark room. So this was the definition of transportation. And the next one is land transport. Here the land transport refers to activities of physical movement of goods and passengers on land. This movement takes place on road, rail or pipe. So this is the meaning for land transport. The next one is pack animals. So here the land transport has been classified into different types. Under this, the first one is pack animals. Animals like horse, mule, donkey, camel and elephant etc. are used for carrying small loads in backward areas, hilly tracts, forest regions and deserts known as pack animals. Generally, the pack animals serve areas which are inaccessible to modern means of transport. Animal transport has also played a significant role where there is no road and railway transport. So this is the meaning for pack animals. And the second one is bullock carts. So here it constitutes the predominant form of rural road transport in India for goods traffic and to some extent for passengers traffic. It links up the villages with the nearby markets and railway stations. It carries the produce for sale to the market and consumer goods to the villages. So this is the meaning for bullock carts. The next is road transport. Road transport is most suitable for short and medium distance where other means are unable to reach. It provides door-to-door service which is not possible with other means. It is a most promising means of agricultural and industrial advancement of a country. Today, it occupies a predominant position in the transport network in the country. The next is motor lorries and buses. From the dawn of civilization, people have been enduring to form roads and use wheeled vehicles to facilitate transport of men and materials. The credit of revolutionizing the road transport and introducing the elements of speed and greater carrying capacity into the system goes to motor lorries and buses. Introduction of petrol engine and later diesel engine vehicle has been offering a good competition to the railways. The next is tramways. It made their appearance in the 19th century as a form of transport suitable for big cities. So here the tramways were initially horse-drawn, later steam-powered and now electrically operated. Its carrying capacity is large. They are able to cope up with the peak hard traffic in big cities with the greater popularity of motor buses. Tramways slowly declined. So Madras city had tramways till 1933. And the last one is railway transport. Here, the invention of steam engine by James Watt revolutionized the mode of transport all over the world. Railway as a mode of transport is the most organized transport undertaking all over the world. Railways are the cheapest and the quickest means of transport for carrying heavy goods over long distance. So, this is the meaning for railway transport. The next is the advantages of railway transport. Here, the railways are well suited for carrying heavy and bulky goods over long distances. And also it can provide a long distance travel throughout the day and night with unbroken services. It can provide better protection and safety to the goods than motor transport. The goods generally carried in closed wagons are not exposed to sun, rain, etc. Though initial investment is large, in the long run the operating expenses will be very low in railways and also it will prove a cheaper mode of transport. It requires less time than motor transport for carrying goods over long distance with greater speed. It has a regular schedule of timing and is available throughout the year. And the last benefit is it provides unaffected services whether rainy or sunny weather conditions. So these are all about the advantages of railway transport. The next is the disadvantages of railway transport. Under this, the first point is railway rates are relatively higher than motor transport for transporting lightweight articles over short distance, and also it is inflexible as it is operated to a particular track which cannot deviate from the set routes. In rural areas, it cannot offer adequate traffic because of uneconomical operating cost. And the next drawback is it requires heavy investment for installation of tracks and maintenance that increases its fare on the users. And the last drawback is if railways are not fully utilized and if wagons and coaches are to half empty to its capacity, a heavy financial burden will be cast on the railway. So these are the disadvantages of railway transport. Next is recent trends in transportation. Under this, the first one is metro rail. So here metro rail is a mass rapid transport system. It is a convenient, fast, efficient, reliable, modern, user-friendly, comfortable and affordable mode of urban transport. And also it runs at a speed of around 150 to 160 km per hour. This is called metro rail. The next one is monorail. A monorail is like a train, but instead of having two sets of wheels that balances on a railway track, the monorail is balanced on top of one rail. Monorails are often used to transport people around large cities. Some monorails utilize magnets to hover on their rails, reducing friction between the train and the rail. The first monorail was invented in the 19th century. The next is bullet train. So bullet train means it is a system of transportation that uses magnetic levitation to suspend, guide and propel vehicles from magnets rather than using mechanical methods such as friction reliant wheels, axles and bearings. It is also known as maglev train. So this is called to be as a bullet train. The next is pipeline transportation. The long pipe with large diameter moving products such as natural gas, petroleum products between cities, countries and continents. These pipelines are owned by the shippers or operating companies. And also this land is owned by the corporate, private and public, that is federal, state or local. And also the material in pipeline is owned by the shipper. So this is all about pipeline transportation. And the next one is conveyor transport. It is a broad category of transport mode that includes modes developed from the idea of a conveyor belt. Examples include conveyor belt, two or more pulleys with a continuous loop of material that rotates about them. Escalator, then elevator, which is used carrying people among floors of building, etc. So this is all about the conveyor transport. The next is ropeway transport. Ropeway transport is used for transporting materials in hilly areas. In India, 16% of total area is hilly. Currently in India, nearly 178 kilometer ropeways are used for transportation. The next is hyperloop transportation. It is a new mode of transport other than road, rail, air and water. Hyperloop consists of a low pressure tube with capsules that are transported at both low and high speeds throughout the length of the tube. And also it was proposed by Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla Motors and SpaceX and co-founder of PayPal. A high-level alpha design for the system was published on August 12, 2013 in a white paper posted to the Tesla and SpaceX blogs. It is an high-speed train transporting at a speed of 800 miles per hour, which is twice the speed of a commercial plane. So this is all about the hyperloop transportation. The next is water transport. Water transport refers to movement of goods and passengers on waterways by using various means like boats, steamers, launchers, ships, etc. With the help of these means, goods and passengers are carried to different places, both within as well as outside the country. So this is all about the water transport. The next is inland waterways. India has an extensive network of inland waterways in the form of rivers, canals, backwaters and creeks. The total navigable length is 14,500 km, out of which about 5,200 km of river and 4,000 km of canals. Thus, India has identified 6 routes as national waterways on rivers Ganga, Brahmaputra, Narmada, Godavari, Krishna, Mahanadi, Brahmani and their linked west and east coastal canals. Inland waterways are the water bodies like rivers, tidal riverine, canals, brooks, etc., which are wide and deep enough to be used for inland navigation. So this is all about the inland waterways. Now we can see advantages of inland waterways. Under this, the first point is just considered as the cheapest mode of transport among the other modes of transport, and also it carries goods smoothly due to the absence of shaking and jolting during transit. It is eminently suitable for the carriage of fragile goods like glassware, earthware, etc. without causing any damage, and also it is most suitable for heavy loads. There is a lesser pollution in water transport. And the last advantage is initial investment on river services as well as expenditure on their maintenance is much lesser as compared to road and rail transport. So these are all about the advantages of inland waterways. Next is disadvantages of inland waterways. It is the slowest means of transport. As compared to this, railways are quicker, safer and cheaper means of transport. Floods caused during rainy seasons, lack of flow of water during summer season affect to ply boats and steamers. Sometimes rivers also change their way. It leads to stoppage and uncertainty in usage of this means of transport. So these are the disadvantages of inland waterways. The next is sea transportation. Watercraft carrying people or goods. Sea transport has been the largest carrier of freight throughout recorded history, and also it can be over any distance by boat, ship, sailboat or barge over oceans and lakes, and also through canals or along rivers. So these are all about the sea transportation. Under this, it includes coastal shipping. So coastal trade consists of the transport of cargo and passengers through sea, and also this typical cargoes mainly include cement, steel, coal, scrap, oil products, grain, fertilizers, containers and passengers. Thus, coastal shipping refers to the movement of cargo with ships between different ports along the coastline of India. Thus, coastal shipping in India is still in its nascent stage. So, this is all about the coastal shipping. The next is overseas shipping. It means the passengers and goods have to cross ocean. For example, India may export goods to America. The next is liner shipping. That means the liner shipping which provide services in the transportation of final and semi-final products such as computers, manufacturing product and other consumption goods, etc. Cargo carried by liner shipping has come to be known as general cargo. Liner shipping is also to provide regular services between specified ports according to timetables and prices which is advertised well in advance. So this is all about the liner shipping. And the last one is tramp shipping. A tramp is a ship that does not operate on a fixed schedule. They engage in spot freight, picking up contracts as they become available. The terms tramp, tramper and tramp freighter are more appropriate today as very few ocean going vessels of any kind are steamers and fewer still are tramp steamers. The use of the term tramp in no way refers to the physical condition of the vessel, although some tramps can be quite run down. So this is all about the tramp shipping. Now assignment. So the first question is differentiate the warehouse warrant from the warehouse receipt. Differentiate the warehouse warrant from the warehouse receipt. And the second one is discuss the advantages of railway transport. Discuss the advantages of railway transport.